Welcome to the show. From Peterson's, I'm Taylor Sienkiewicz, and you're listening to You Have a Cool Job, a podcast highlighting those who took their profession in a unique direction and what they did to get there. On today's episode of You Have a Cool Job, we talk to Judith McIntyre Galecki, a cellist in the Colorado Symphony. Judith's work includes travel, physical demand, and a lifelong devotion to music. She explains her role in the orchestra.
I'm one of the cellists in the Colorado Symphony, and so I play concerts from September through May, as well as the summer season in July. And my position is officially third chair. There's like a hierarchy.
But Judith's rank as third chair is fluid, as she can step in and out of positions based on when and where she's needed.
But I've been acting principal for the last season and this season. So because we don't have the first and second chairs filled, so it's my job to sort of move up and assume that role if needed. But it's different from like other businesses where seniority just assumes that you move up. It's a totally different audition for somebody who wants to come in and be the principal cellist.
For those of us who aren't familiar with the orchestral music scene, it can seem like a whole other world. I asked Judith what her job looks like day to day.
The actual job requirements, I have a schedule of rehearsals and concerts that we get at the beginning of each season, and that usually looks like Wednesday morning rehearsal, Thursday morning and afternoon rehearsals, Friday morning rehearsal, and then we have concerts Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday matinee. And it's assumed that I show up at the first rehearsal prepared and ready to go. So I have a lot of practicing that I had to do on my own in order to learn all the repertoire, because we have different concerts each week, and sometimes we have 2 or 3 different programs in 1 week, depending on what the concert is. Like if we have a pops concert or a children's concert, then we might have 2 or 3 different programs. And then the Masterworks, which is more classical, is, we have 1 program for that week and 3 concerts of the same program.
Aside from the music itself, Judith's work takes her to some of the country and world's most beautiful places.
These orchestral musicians often do different festivals, all over the country and all over the world. And the one that I do every summer now is based in the Tetons. It's just outside of Jackson, and it's an orchestral festival as well as chamber music, and it's made up of, the orchestra is made up of players from orchestras all over the country and actually all over the world. There's a few that come in from Europe or Asia, and we get together and we all are there for a week or 2, some more, and it's like a 7-week long festival, and we play together and hike and swim in the lakes and do all the fun things that are available there, and then we come together and perform beautiful music, and sometimes there's chamber music concerts that are a part of the festival that we play in, and it's just a really fun opportunity. It's like music camp for grown-ups. Mm-hmm. And so it's a fun opportunity to see our friends and play together and do fun things.
After a description of an orchestra event with a Teton backdrop, I wanted to hear about more of Judith's travels. Can you describe one of the most unique festivals that you've been to?
Well, I've done a couple really fun festivals. I used to play in a new music festival in Santa Cruz, California, and I went there for 2 weeks every August for a few years. And this festival is basically all the music that we played there. The ink was still wet on the page, and all living composers, and they had just composed the piece, and oftentimes for the festival they were commissioned to write a piece for the festival. And usually it was really hard stuff, but really fun as well to sort of experience new sounds and what is sort of the cutting edge of classical music in today's world.
As far as international travel, Judith described more gorgeous mountain settings.
The other festival I used to do when I was younger was in Switzerland in the Alps, and it was in this tiny little ski town called Verbier, and it was halfway up a mountain, and people from all over the world, students would make up the orchestra, and they chose a few people from countries from all over the world. And so it was really incredible to experience that sort of multiculturalism in this tiny little town. And also the quality of artists. I mean, there would just be star players coming in and playing with the orchestra or playing chamber music in their own concerts. And you'd see them wandering around the town. It was just such a fun environment to be in for the summer.
So, Judith, you talked a little bit about some of the music being really challenging at that festival. What would you say is the most challenging part of your job?
Well, I would think, like as an orchestral player, like a full-time orchestral player, I think the most challenging thing is just the sheer volume of music that you're going through week after week after week, and you just have to stay on top of it.
Despite the years of experience Judith has, new music and changes in style keep her on her toes.
I mean, I've been doing this for a number of years now, so I'm familiar with most of the repertoire. But there was a while you get a few new pieces, and you know, you have to really learn the notes and learn how it goes. And then next week you have, you know, another set of pieces that you have to learn and perform. And then the following week you have a children's concert, or you're playing with, you know, we played with Leslie Odom Jr. earlier this month, and then we have Halloween shows, and then we're playing the music soundtrack to movies, like live orchestral music to the movie, and they show the movie like Harry Potter or Nightmare Before Christmas or the Rocky Horror Picture Show. You know, it's super fun, but it's a lot of music, and especially the movies are really challenging because you have to really be alert, and not only can the music be quite difficult, but you have to really be alert so that, you know, you're paying attention because it has to line up with the screen. So there's that challenge, and you know, I guess it's just the sheer volume of repertoire that you're going through all the time, and you just have to be on top of it.
Right. How often do you practice then?
Oh, every day. I mean, I'm always preparing for something. And I might take a day off here and there, especially if I've had like a few weeks of really intense work. I mean, you have to protect your body. So, you know, it's like any athlete. We just use different muscles, you know, depending on which instrument you play. And so you have to really be smart about how you're using your body and how you're taking care of your body and exercising and eating right, and so that you can be in top performing shape all the time. I guess it's kind of like sports teams, you know, like they have to really be at practice, and they have to take care of their bodies, and they have to sleep right, and, you know, have their A game going all the time.
That's an interesting point. How do you try to do that then? Because a cello is a large instrument, so what do you do to physically prepare for it?
Yeah, so I do a lot of stretching, and I walk and exercise, you know, when I can. But just to keep myself limber is the main thing, especially since I'm sitting a lot, but I'm sitting and moving in a specific way. So I have to make sure that, you know, my shoulders are relaxed and my neck is relaxed, and I've stretched out a little bit, especially my forearms and my shoulders. Because especially when you're concentrating really hard, you can get tight. You know, naturally, if somebody's sitting at a computer, their shoulders go up. But you can't play an instrument if your shoulders go up and you're concentrating really hard. So there's this fine balance of very highly focused attention, and you have to have control over your body so that you're doing the right things and you're maintaining this relaxation, and as well as staying in touch with the emotion of the music. So it's like a whole package deal that you have to work on.
The career of a musician is often one that starts at a young age, and this is true for Judith. She shared her musical background and path to the Colorado Symphony.
Well, I've been in the orchestra actually since 2003. I've been doing it for several years, and before that I was freelancing a little bit, like with some various little orchestras. I was at school in New York, and then I was at school in Toronto, and I've been playing the cello since I was 7 years old, and before that I was studying violin for a few years. I picked it up. Children who study classical instruments, they usually do a Suzuki method, which is very, very popular for children learning an instrument. And I also came from a musical family, so it was kind of like, a lifelong study and a lifelong journey of studying music and being immersed in the different pieces and the different styles and different instruments in my house, like that my sisters played violin and my parents were pianists and things like that.
The family influence of an instrument, sport, or other activity resonates with many families. I asked Judith how exactly this musical family influence affected her.
Well, a lot of different ways and in different ways throughout my life. So I grew up listening to my sisters practice violin, and I started on the violin, and then I decided that I needed to do my own thing and switched to cello. And my parents were very involved in our musical education. So instead of, going to play soccer on Saturdays, we bundled up our instruments in the car and went to music lessons, or we went to youth orchestra, or whatever kind of musical study was being offered at that time. And we practiced every day, and we went to lessons every week, and just got used to the discipline of learning an instrument. As I grew older, my dad is a musicologist and was a professor of music for years and years. And we would have lengthy discussions about composers and different major pieces and, musical gossip and different politics that you run into in the business.
Since musicians start at such an early age and devote much of their life to their work, you can guess that the industry is just a little bit competitive.
The audition process is incredibly competitive, and because only a number of maybe 10, 15 positions for a full-time orchestra open every year in this country, and you can have anywhere from 30 to 300 people coming out for one position, and you have a list that you prepare, and you come out and do your best, and you have about 10 minutes to play in the first round, and most people get cut, and then you hopefully come back for other rounds. So I was really happy to win the position I have and be able to join a full-time organization.
So how do you think people should respond if they do get cut but they want to keep trying to work in the industry? Well,
the audition process is, it's like a whole other subject aside from just the job. It's, people are coming up with all kinds of blogs and articles and interviews and programs all devoted to audition preparation because it is such a competitive thing. So, when I was on the audition circuit, I had to approach it like this is a learning experience. I have the standard list of repertoire that you need to perform for most auditions. And I just kept practicing them, and every time I did an audition, I would file away the experience and just approach it like I'm going to learn something in this. I kept learning and learning and getting better until I won one. And even after you win one, sometimes you want a bigger job and you keep auditioning. But I think the main thing is just using it as a growth experience and just keeping at it and adding it to the wealth of information and experience that you develop throughout your life to become a better musician.
After hearing about a cutthroat audition process and a background devoted to music, I wanted to know what kept Judith motivated and inspired her both then and now.
Well, I love playing the music, and the different repertoire keeps me really interested. And just being able to connect musically with other people, the conductor and the other musicians on stage and the audience, and hearing how they respond to different pieces that I love, especially, is just an incredible feeling when it's really good, especially.
While Judith shared her personal story, she explained that most of the people who surround her on an orchestral stage have a similar background, forming a close-knit community.
You know, what makes my field unique is the people who are in my field are in the orchestras around the country. And, I don't just play in an orchestra. I also teach cello, and I play a lot of chamber music and, things like that. Most of the people have been doing it since they were children. And, it's kind of like our specialization is equivalent to a neurosurgeon, because we've been doing it for so long and we've been studying it for so long. And so when you go to see an orchestra, you're basically watching a stage filled with 80 to 100 musicians who have been doing this their entire lives and have devoted their lives to this art and to learning the repertoire and learning the skills to produce the most beautiful music they can. And I think it's just so fun to be a part of that community.
As for final thoughts, Judith left us with some insight about her musical future.
Really, I'm going to be studying it for the rest of my life and hopefully always improving. It's just like any art form, it's never perfect. You always are striving for an ideal.
Judith's career as a musician contains elements of art, travel, and community, as well as physicality and rigor. As this age-old career of music continues to push its boundaries, Judith is at the root of it all, influencing people through both old and new music. We hope you're inspired by Judith's story and are able to find something you're equally passionate about, no matter what age you find out exactly what that is. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.